Hello, welcome to my video. Today's video is a guide on how to rush the ruins and... Wait, can you hear that? Cat person, it is time to pass on the knowledge that was given to you by our ancestors. Teach your viewers about the ways of the Beefalo. Fine. Today I will convince you to join the Beefalo gang. To convince you, I could show a Beefalo dealing over 200 damage per hit, but who really cares about dealing more damage than Wolfgang in 2023? Especially when you can spend your time dressing up your Beefalo with cute outfits with the Beefalo grooming station. While it can be fun to browse through all the different free Beefalo skins and creating a new unique combination for your very unique Beefalo, we can't deny they are basically war machines that's not only going to protect you from almost all enemies in the game, but it will also help you kill several bosses. You see, Beefalos are not only useful to get from point A to point B with their incredible speed, you can also see them as a weapon and an armor with infinite durability. When you are domesticating your Beefalo, it will buck you often, which is not only annoying but very dangerous. And you're also dealing as much damage as a spear, which is not great. But if you manage to domesticate an ornery Beefalo, its base damage will be 50, which is really good if you picture it as a weapon that never breaks. This has a really good synergy with Wendy and Wes, characters that deals 25% less damage than others, because the Beefalo's damage is not affected by their downside. This also means Wolfgang and Wigfrid cannot get extra damage when attacking with a Beefalo, but that's okay, they don't need it. After a Beefalo is fully domesticated, it won't buck you off, unless you ride it for almost 2 days straight. And after domestication is completed, if you choose an ornery Beefalo, your cost will be 1 grass or 1 twig every time you want to hop on it. Other tendencies do not have that requirement. Beefalos are not amazing only if you're playing a character that deals less damage. It's also incredible if your character has low max health or healing problems. There are only 3 creatures in this game that can damage you when you're riding a Beefalo. Those creatures are Nemactusk, the Bishop, and the Speeder, as their attacks are projectiles. When fighting other creatures and even bosses, the Beefalo will absorb 100% of the damage for you. Beefalos in domestication will restore health over time, 6.9 health every 10 seconds. Nice. And they also get a 400% bonus on consuming healing foods. For example, a blue cap that restores 20 health for the player will restore 80 health for your Beefalo. You can tell if your Beefalo is low HP if there's a red overlay around your screen. But if you want to learn how to domesticate your Beefalo, first I advise you to download the Beefalo widget mod. This mod shows you the Beefalo's health, the buck timer, the hunger, the obedience, and the domestication. The mod is not needed in any way, but it's very helpful if you're taming a Beefalo for the first time and you're just trying to figure it out. So let's talk about obedience and domestication. Both meters go from 0 to 100%. For de-domestication, it just means how far into the domestication process you are. Upon reaching 100%, it will poof, becoming fully domesticating according to its tendency at that moment. But it's good to be aware on how domesticated your Beefalo is during the process, since it's correlated to how long you can ride your Beefalo before it bucks you off. In other words, higher domestication means you can ride the Beefalo longer. With time and experience, you'll get the feeling of how long you can ride your Beefalo even without the mod. But let's talk now about obedience. Every time you feed your Beefalo something, the obedience goes up by 10% up to 100%. Obedience decays over time at 50% a day, and you also lose 1% when your Beefalo is attacked. When obedience is at 0%, your Beefalo will lose domestication over time, so you never want to abandon your Beefalo during the domestication process, as the obedience will hit 0 and you will lose your progress. When it's below 10%, in this stage the Beefalo will not even allow you to put a saddle on it, as it will become aggressive. If it's below 40%, if it has a saddle equipped, it will shake it off and the saddle will lose 20% durability. And finally, it needs to have 50% or more obedience for you to ride it. It sounds complicated, but in reality it's incredibly simple. All you gotta do is feed it grass, twigs, petals, or light bulbs to keep the obedience high at all times. That's it. There's a big misconception about the Beefalo's hunger. I've seen people saying that you need an X amount of dragon pies to tame a Beefalo, when in fact you can completely ignore the Beefalo's hunger throughout the entire process. Filling your Beefalo's belly has 3 uses. Number 1, when its hunger meter is above 50%, it gets pudgy points. Number 2, your obedience decays is lower. Number 3, you keep getting domestication points when you're not riding it. So the only real reason to fill your Beefalo's belly is when you're not riding it. On that case, you can feed it steamed twigs, a dish made out of 4 twigs which feeds your Beefalo for 100 hunger. When you're riding your Beefalo will be getting domestication from it, and it does not stack with the domestication you get from hunger. The domestication you get is from either riding or hunger, not both. In other words, the meta for Beefalo domestication is gathering a couple stacks of light bulbs from the mud biome in the caves and just ride it all the time until it's domesticated, only feeding it steamed twigs when you're doing something like building or organizing your base or cooking. Now, you might be thinking the best character Beefalo synergy is Wendy because Abigail can also boost the Beefalo's damage. Or maybe even Wormwood because it almost completely negates his downside of not being able to heal from food. But in reality, the best synergy is with Worley. Worley can make a very special dish called vodka jelly, and it can season dishes with garlic, pepper, and salt. And why is that a big deal? A character that ate vodka jelly gets temporary electric damage on hits, which increases the DPS. If the enemy is wet, it increases the DPS even further. And while the Beefalo cannot eat the dish, the electricity transfers from the character to the Beefalo, meaning you get electric attacks with your Beefalo if your character eats it. Beefalos can eat any vegetarian dish, so you can season it and feed it directly to the Beefalo. Chili for extra damage, garlic for extra defense, and salt for extra HP. Besides the steamed twigs we talked about, there's a second dish that is exclusive to Beefalos, Beefalo Treats. It requires forget-me-lots to make, which can be annoying to obtain, but this dish restores 300 of your Beefalo's health. So if you're thinking about fighting a boss like Celestial Champion, it could be worth to bring some treats. Now for the Beefalo exclusive items. The Beefalo Bell is extremely important for your Beefalo. And no, it's not only because you can name your Beefalo something funny. The Beefalo guarantees that your Beefalo will always be following it. Even if you cross the sea and left your Beefalo behind, it will teleport to your next location since it's trying to reach the bell. With the bell, you can also bring it to the caves, which is a big game changer. We have 3 different saddles right now. The normal saddle has no upsides or downsides, as it is by far the cheapest one to make and the one you should use during the domestication process. The second is the Glossomer saddle. It requires 68 butterfly wings or 34 if you're using the green amulets, and increases your Beefalo's speed by an extra 15%. And the War saddle requiring steel wool makes your Beefalo 15% slower, but it gives 16 extra bonus damage. Another super useful item is the brush. Using the brush on your Beefalo will increase the obedience by 40% and domestication by 1.6% once a day. So if you decided to tame a Beefalo late game, brushing it once a day will speed up the process by a whole lot, super worth it. The saddle horn is used to remove the saddle from the Beefalo without it losing durability. Not that useful since you can replace the old saddle by just using a new one on your Beefalo. The salt lick is useful whenever you need to leave your Beefalo behind for a few days, as it keeps your Beefalo's domestication from reducing over time. And the Beefalo hat prevents your Beefalo from attacking you if it's in heats. During spring, Beefalos will stay in heat throughout the entire season, and your buck timer will be greatly reduced. Beefalo hat can be really useful if you're just trying to finish off its domestication, so the Beefalo won't attack you once it bucks you off. And once the Beefalo is domesticated, it no longer goes on heats. And as mentioned before, the Beefalo grooming station allows you to change your Beefalo's appearance. Best addition to the game. And we are finally here at the last part of the video, tips and tricks. If you want an easy way to obtain steel wool, you can activate the Ear of the Bunnyman event in the world settings. Build the structure and place the carrots to summon the Bunnyman. From there, you can target the steel wood pillow and deconstruct it with a deconstruction staff. Much better than trying to get a nucleus, right? If you want a Glossomer saddle, as I said before, the green amulet will save you a lot of time, as it cuts the cost by half. But if you are playing as Wendy or there's a Wendy player on the server, you can plant a single flower at base and leave Abigail camping on it in aggressive mode, so you can passively collect the butterflies you need. Early winter, sometimes your Beefalo in domestication will go in heat for a couple days. If you are in the middle of the domestication process, you can go to the caves and back to the surface, and that removes your Beefalo's red butts. But I believe this only works after a certain point of the Beefalo's domestication. If you try this with a Beefalo that is not domesticated at all, it won't work. Be active during the domestication process. People complain that domesticating a Beefalo takes too long, and that's probably because they are focusing too much on the Beefalo and not playing the game. Exploring the map from edge to edge is a great way to start your domestication and your world. Finding points of interest like marble pieces and set pieces will be very useful in the future. The caves also needs exploration. I personally like to rush the ruins on a Beefalo. It's definitely slower with your low DPS, but it's not that bad once you're used to it. And by the time you've done most of this, your Beefalo will be towards the end of the domestication process. Beefalos in domestication will get ordinary points when it attacks and when it's attacked. So you can fight mobs with low damage like the small tentacles from a tentapillar, bees, and spiders. You can also get ordinary points from collecting cactus and spiky bushes. You can be very creative with this. And that's it. Hopefully I was able to convince you of the multiple benefits of having a Beefalo. Subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. And as always, thank you for watching.